At the end of the First World War, while Italy was on the verge of defeating Austria militarily, and Habsburg partners such as Hungary and Croatia were pulling out of the empire, an opportunity emerged for Italy, which had been promised most of the Adriatic coast, the old Roman provinces of Illyria, as part of the 1915 Treaty of London to join the war on the side of Britain and France. Along most of the Illyrian coast, Italians were a majority population in coastal towns and cities, with a strong Austrian-German presence as well from centuries of Habsburg rule. However, the hinterland had a majority population of South Slavs, mainly Croats and Slovenes. This would later cause the Entente powers to back away from some of their promises to Italy, as during the war, concerns for the South Slavs and Serbia's interest was given as well. However, the hundreds of thousands of Italian dead meant that when they finally had the Austrians on the run and in full retreat from northern Italy in the latter part of 1918, Italy had its opportunity to seize prizes that would pay off its bloody participation in the war. With Austria forced to sign an armistice with Italy on November 3rd, they retreated from not only the Italian soil they'd occupied, but also Austrian crown lands with a large Italian population, such as South Tyrol and Trieste. We discussed the mostly amicable integration into Italy of the German and Italian-speaking South Tyrol, both as part of our Collapse of Austria-Hungary series and our feature on the Brenner Pass across the Tyrolean Alps, but on the Istrian Peninsula, with the mixed German, Italian, and Slavic population, more complex disputes would emerge. Upon the Austrian withdrawal, Italy immediately landed troops at the city of Trieste, arriving by boat on the evening of November 3rd. Trieste had a long history as a free imperial city under the Habsburgs, with time spent under the rule of France and Venice as well. Its status as a major Adriatic trading hub made it valuable to Italy and Yugoslavia beyond just the population concerns. Italy and Yugoslavia would quickly occupy the rest of Istria, however they'd yet to agree on a border, with the Italians busy consolidating their newfound control of Trieste. In the immediate future, the dispute would mainly focus on the frontier between the two powers, with the sides agreeing on Italian control of most of Istria, including Trieste, but a dispute then emerging over the border city of Fiume. A roller coaster ride would then ensue for the city over the next 5 years, including being taken over by Italian corporatists, briefly being turned into a city-state, and eventually being annexed to Italy during the early Mussolini era in 1924. We went over much of the fascinating story of Fiume during this time as part of the Collapse of Austria-Hungary series, and we may well come back to the subject and do a video going into more detail. Trieste, on the other hand, would remain a part of Italy for the next 2 decades, and its oil refineries and port were heavily bombed in World War II, with the city suffering extensive damage. It had remained under the control of the Axis powers even after the Kingdom of Italy's capitulation to the Allies in 1943, being quickly garrisoned by the Germans and made part of a military operational zone, nominally part of the Germans' new Italian puppet state. Thus, American and British bombing of Trieste continued all the way through the spring of 1945. Yugoslavia's communist partisans, led by Joseph Broz Tito, captured the city on the 2nd of May, just as British New Zealand forces arrived on the scene as well. For the next 6 weeks, the Yugoslav communists remained in control of the city, interning fascist collaborators and other anti-communist elements as part of a soft Red Purge, later known as the 40 Days of Trieste. After this, the Yugoslavs and the Americans and British agreed on a demarcation of the area, with the Yugoslavs retaining control over most of the peninsula, including a military administration in parts of the Trieste hinterland, although not the port itself, and an Allied garrison controlling much of the northwest of the region, including military administration over the free port. American and British troops also garrisoned areas further to the northwest, which all parties agreed were part of Italy. Additionally, the Allied forces maintained an enclave in Pula, near the southern tip of Istria, while the Yugoslavs had an exclave in Opakia Sela. In the southeast of Istria, Fiume was taken over by Yugoslavia, this time without a dispute, and becoming the city of Rijeka. In 1947, what was supposed to be a more permanent arrangement was created. Most of the Allied occupation zone, including Opakia Sela and Pula, went to Yugoslavia. Meanwhile, the areas surrounding the city itself, including the remainder of the Allied occupation zone and the Yugoslav occupation zone, were merged into a new international city-state, the Free Territory of Trieste. The demarcation line, known as the Morgan Line, did remain, however, with American and British troops administering the northern part of the Free City, known as Zone A, while the Yugoslavs continued to administer the south, or Zone B. However, the territory's functionality was impaired right from the start. The fallout of relations between not only the Western powers and the Soviet Union, but also communist Yugoslavia and the Soviet Union, made international administration of the territory nearly impossible, with the sides unable to agree on a governor. Instead, the territory remained administered by the respective military zones. This effective state of limbo would remain for another 7 years, though the city reclaimed its former status as a commerce hub during this time, with the continuation of the port's traditional status as a free trade area, attracting commerce back to the old imperial trade hub. On the 5th of October 1954, a permanent solution was finally agreed upon in the London Memorandum. This stipulated that Yugoslavia would annex Zone B, including the secondary port of Koper, while Zone A, including the city of Trieste itself and the free port, would be handed over to Italy. However, several villages north of the Morgan Line were majority inhabited by Slavs, so these villages were also designated to join Yugoslavia at the same time Trieste joined Italy. This remains the Italian border today. However, the Yugoslav territory, which had been split between Croatia and Slovenia within the Yugoslav Federation, became divided between the two now sovereign countries in 1991. This, fortunately, was a peaceful demarcation, and there was no fighting in the area. The Illyrian coastline of Istria and Dalmatia remains a picturesque hub of tourism and trade to this day, with the former free territory now representing some of the most valuable coastline for Croatia, Slovenia, and Italy. The city of Trieste itself, as part of Italy, remains the country's busiest port, handling over 62 million metric tons of goods every year. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to check out the project that forms the basis for these videos at apoliticalworldmap.org. Make sure to like this video and comment down below. Subscribe and hit that bell button. And if you can, please donate on Patreon. For now, thanks again for watching. I'm Alex. I am out.